Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psych Reg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. We're going to review a different article today.
I almost said it's good to be back.
It is.
That would have been a lie.
It's not good to be back?
It's good to be back.
It's always
It really
good to
is.
be here.
I had to miss some days. I had to make a few extra trips to Tampa.
Oh, yeah,
And,
this past week.
Yeah, it was kind of a discombobulated schedule. So it's good to be back, digging in and getting some work done.
Yeah, same for me. The last couple...
Oh, that's right.
The last couple
Court
weekends... and just
the soccer weekends.
The last couple
I forgot
weeks,
about
it's
those.
been just really hectic and just going all over the place.
That's
and
right. You were
doing all
gone
this.
the last 2 weekends.
Yeah.
That's why that's why they were peaceful.
That's why you got so much done.
I got
because
some
I
work
wasn't
done.
here.
That's right. I'm trying to get some done.
That's why I got
weekend, too.
nothing done.
I know.
I feel like I
That
got
was
nothing
fun.
done.
Makes you nervous, doesn't it?
Ah, man, I forgot. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
appreciate how rough it is when you get behind.
That's right. It takes you forever to get ready. I mean, you have to work fast because you know you're going to be gone, and then you have to work fast after you get back to catch up.
And then we had a whole bunch of meetings and stuff
Right.
this week.
That's
It's
right.
like,
Oh, that's right. We had
gracious.
2 meetings this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there was just every day there
It
was
was.
something.
It was very disorienting, and we were wondering. And I didn't have to teach one of the days this week, so we kept thinking that was Friday.
Yeah.
Because we're not used to me being here on Thursday.
Thursday
morning.
was
So the whole week was, and then I had to do that talk on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
It was just completely disorienting.
it was a rough
Yeah.
week. So, but you know
So
what?
it's good to be back.
We're back.
We're back.
And today we're going to talk about another article from Psychology Today,
Right.
and it has to do. The one we did for yesterday's show was about diet, the modified Mediterranean diet, but this one is about exercise, and
Right. In midlife.
in midlife. So this one is specific to midlife and some of the pretty remarkable findings from a recent study that was done up in North Carolina.
Right. University of North Carolina.
Yeah. So what they did was they were looking at individuals. This wasn't a human study.
Right. It was an animal study.
This was an animal study. But just as a quick caveat, sometimes we have a difficult time at times coping with the idea of doing animal studies.
Right.
And sort of putting the sort of the ethical pieces of that aside,
Put it aside for a moment,
because
right.
certainly people have difficulties with animal studies because of the way the animals are treated and some of those kinds of things. But putting that stuff aside, that's a completely different conversation. But the reason that we study many of these things in animals is twofold. One is because when we're looking at the basic science, you can't just do some of that research with humans because for everything that we may appreciate and respect with other animals, it is very different to do those kinds of things with humans. But secondly, and the sheer number. I mean, you can study.
Right. You can get a whole box of mice,
Right.
or rats, or whatever animal you want to study. I mean,
Right.
they're raised for scientific purposes.
Right. And you just can't get that number.
Can't get a box.
of
Can't
humans.
order a box of humans.
Yeah, one day maybe, but not yet.
Not yet.
I heard there's magazines though where
But
you
the
can
other
order
thing-
people from different places.
The other thing about this is and this is another thing that's useful to remember, is that the brain functions they were studying
Right.
are so identical.
So similar.
I mean,
Right.
it really doesn't matter that whether it's a human or a primate or some other mammal.
And I do think that's
They're
fascinating.
identical. They're identical. I mean, there just isn't any difference
Right.
between for what they studied. There's no difference between a mouse and a human.
Right. I remember when I was first starting to do research in the medical school and everything, and we had to do some rat studies,
Right.
and we talked about that, and it was like, wait, I mean, their brain is, It's certainly shaped differently.
And it's
it looks
smaller,
differently.
of course.
But for the most part, there are so many just structures and systems within the rat brain that is almost identical to ours.
When we studied neuroanatomy in graduate school, it was before we had slides that we had to project onto a screen, and they were monkey brains.
Yeah.
Okay. Macaque monkeys from South America, and they were identical to human brains, same structures in exactly the same locations.
Right.
So.
And I think that not to belabor this point, but I think that because of that, that's why a lot of people have perhaps a valid argument about against the study of studying animals
if they're
in
that
way
close
because
to us.
yeah.
Do we have the right?
So,
but again, that issue aside,
that's a different issue.
Okay,
Yeah,
which we'll be happy to address if listeners want us
Absolutely.
to. But that issue aside, fascinating study.
Right. So this particular study, now that we have spent 5 minutes talking about animal studies, this study was an animal study, but what they did was they looked at middle-aged rats, and they were studying the effects of exercise on the aging brain, but specifically, interestingly enough, as it relates to strokes and and the consequences, ramifications of strokes.
That's right. That was the fascinating part to me, because there's this concept of collateral circulation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Which is here's what we worry about. We worry about as we age, the aging brain. We worry about two things. One is getting a sufficient amount of blood to the brain.
Right.
But the other thing is that the little vessels, as the vessels go through the brain, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay. And as they get smaller and smaller and smaller, they get prone to damage.
Right.
Okay. Or they dry out, or they break, or so, and that's what a stroke is.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So,
right. And I think that's an important point to make sure that folks know that a stroke is in essence a cardiovascular accident.
Right.
They call it a CVA.
Right.
Because it is a disruption in the brain's circulation of blood.
That's right.
It's not anything specific to brain tissue per se.
Right.
It is that area of the brain no longer gets blood.
That's right.
And then that can cause the brain damage itself. But
because if you're not getting blood, the cells are
the cells will die.
It's supposed to keep them. It's like water in a plant.
Right.
Okay. If you stop watering a plant, it dies. If you stop sending blood to the brain cells, they die. Okay. Because they can't live without the oxygen and glucose that it's bringing them, and so. What we worry about with aging is enough blood going to the brain, so you have a sufficient amount of oxygen, but also the occurrence and effects of strokes.
Right.
Because if you live long enough, many people will eventually encounter a stroke, and that's one of the leading causes of death and morbidity and mortality in the United States. What did it say? There's somebody that has a stroke every
40 seconds.
Every 40 seconds.
Right.
So, I mean, these are common occurrences.
Yeah.
So the fact that this study addresses the occurrence and effects of stroke is of particular interest because it's such strokes are so common.
Right. Yeah, and it says one of every 20 deaths in the U.S. is attributed to stroke.
So the morbidity and the mortality is really high with this. It's really a significant issue. So when I saw this study that addressed that in particular, I said, well, this is something that most of us are going to be interested in.
Absolutely. So if we are, with all of that in mind, what this study found is that when middle-aged rats engage in good aerobic exercise, it protects the brain from the effects of a stroke.
That's right.
And so even if the rat has a stroke, it doesn't prevent necessarily.
You're right. It's not that it's going to prevent the stroke.
Right.
Okay. It's going to diminish it's going to reduce the effects.
Right.
The damaging effects of a stroke.
Right.
That's what I found fascinating, because I I did not know that
Yeah.
that would happen.
This is a line from the article itself. It says, additionally, if an older mouse had been exercising regularly and suffered a stroke, there was significantly less brain damage caused because robust collateral vessels kept blood flowing to the brain despite the blockage.
That's right.
And so even if some of those veins are or blood vessels are blocked and it's stopping the blood from getting there, the benefits of the aerobic exercise creates more blood vessels to go to different regions, and so it just even if one is blocked off or a couple are blocked off, there's still enough blood getting there, and so the overall effects of the stroke are much less.
Yeah, you have two people who have a stroke. If you've been exercising, the effects are going to be reduced.
Right.
In the person who's exercising.
Right. So the moral of this story, what these mice have taught us, is that especially as we're approaching middle age, I mean, this is the case at all ages, but especially as we get into middle age, we really need to be engaging in some forms of regular aerobic exercise, because it's going to not only keep our heart healthy, because this study was sponsored in part by the American Heart Association. Right. So it not only keeps our heart healthy, but it's going to make our brain more resistant to the damaging effects of regular aging, as well as cardiovascular accidents and strokes and things like that.
Right. Yeah. So one of the main findings of this study is this fascinating relationship between exercise and stroke. The other thing is the animals who were put through these rigorous aerobic exercises actually had bigger brain structures.
Right.
Okay. Right. So that it really seemed to grow the brain in some way.
Right.
And one of the fascinating areas that was a little bit larger in the mice that exercised was the hippocampus, which is the part that makes new memories.
Right.
And we worry about memory loss as we age. So here's a way, without any medication, and doing something that's good for you, that will enhance memory because it improves the hippocampus. And when the mice were taught different tasks, the mice who did the exercising did better on memory tasks. Okay. Right. So beneficial to the brain in almost every way. Yeah. Particularly helpful if you would experience a stroke.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Stuff. Great stuff. So as we used to always say, and we haven't said this on the podcast in a long time, get out there and exercise.
Get out there and
go. For a
I've been
walk.
talking all week.
You have.
You know why I don't do it.
Why?
I mean, I have to blame somebody.
It's my fault. Yeah.
Because you demand, your expectations are so high that I don't have time to sleep or exercise.
Speaking of that, we'll be talking about personality disorders coming up. No, it's high expectations.
Cruelty knows no bounds.
High expectations.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
We should exercise together.
I've been saying that. We could have meetings.
Well, now that it's my idea, we can...
Now we can do it. I've learned that in the last 2 weeks, too. Man, oh, goodness.
It's been a rough 2 weeks.
It has.
But you know what?
Good. Good to be back.
All's good.
Okay.
All right, so that's it for today. We talked about all kinds of... We were off topic a little bit today, but that's all right. It all works out.
It works.
But we'll be back next time. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.